डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर ओपन यूनिवर्सिटी.
Hello friends, welcome to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, Ahmedabad. Myself, Dr. Vinod L. Desai, Associate Professor, PG Department of Computer Science and Technology, Sardar Patel University, Vidyanagar. In today's sessions, we will talk regarding form object, events that is triggered through various controls of the form. Then after we will talk about image object and frame objects with respect to JavaScript. Now let's talk regarding form. As we know that form is one kind of container which allows users or developers to put various controls on the form and design a web page. And based on this designing, user provide the inputs and the form will accept this input. After accepting the inputs from the user, the data will be submitted to the server and further processing will take place. So form, if we have to define, we can say it's simply one kind of container. With respect to JavaScript, form is an object, is a browser object of JavaScript used to access an HTML form. So we can say it is one kind of BOM object, okay, browser object model concept. If a user wants to access all forms within a document, then he can use the forms array. The form object is usually a property of document object that is uniquely created by the browser for each form present in the document. The properties and methods associated with the form object are used to access the form's fields, attributes and controls associated with the forms. So form may have attributes, may have controls associated with, and that can be accessed using the, we can say, various methods of the, we can say, form object. Document forms are members of the special collection document.forms. It is both named and ordered. We can use both the name or the number in the document to get the form. Document.form.my indicates that my is the name of the form. So using this we can access the form, or we can use the forms and we can say box bracket 0. 0 indicates the index, that is first form. If we have more than one form in a document, then we can use the indexing from starting with a 0. That 0 indicates first form, 1 second, list goes on. We can say in such a manner we can access number of forms contained in the document. The form object properties includes action, elements, encoding, length, method, target, button, checkbox, file upload, hidden, password, radio, reset, select, submit, text, text area, etc. So these are all, we can say, form object properties that we can use to manipulate the form. Form object methods, if we have to talk, then it is having, we can say, methods in terms of reset, which allows the, we can say, to reset a form. Submit method is there, which is what allows us to submit the form. Then handle event is there, which a form object is used to start or invoke form's event handler for a specific event. Then after, we can say, we have the events in JavaScript. Okay, so before we proceed further, let's have a look to the examples of a form. Okay, this is a simple example of form. As you can see, okay, we have one form here. Its ID we have specified like my form. Then after, we have specified the method, or we can say, then after we can say target is there, action is there, name is there. So these are various properties of form we have just specified. Okay, so ID we have specified, that is my form. Then method specified is get. There are various kind of, we can say, values for the method, that is get, post, do get, like that. Okay, but mostly used are the get and post. Okay, get is used for the data which are not very sensitive, but if the form involves sensitive data in terms of credit card numbers and any other data which are very crucial and very sensitive, that is to be kept in a secret manner, then we should not use get as a value to the method attribute, but we should always use post in such kind of situation, okay, instead of get. Then after the target we have specified underscore blank, that means the document to be opened once the action is fired in a new window. Then action is there, so whenever the form is getting submitted, the specified we can say actions will take place. And then after we have specified the name of the form, that is F1, and within the form, this form tag we have created the, we can say, text controls, two text fields we have created, and then after we can say we have one button after that, and that is what a submit button we have created. Once the button gets clicked, the form will be submitted and specified actions will be taken to handle the, we can say, submitted data for further processing. So this is a simple way to create a form and to put various controls on it and specify the properties of the form. Now let's, what is event? Talk about events. What is event? So simply if we have to define event, then we can say event is nothing but the change in the status of an object is called an event. So whenever the status of a particular control gets changed, we can say that event has been triggered, or we can say it is fired by a particular control. So JavaScript is used in HTML pages. JavaScript can react on some processes is called an event. So whenever event occurs in a HTML page, okay, so to respond to this event, we need a mechanism through JavaScript so that the response can be sent back to a particular event. So JavaScript helps us to react to such kind of events. Common events that is, we can say, triggered to the interactions of the user are, we can say, on change, on click, on mouse over, on mouse out, on key down, on load. These are various events, we can say, that is triggered whenever the status of an object gets changed. Then after we can say event handlers for form elements in JavaScript. Various, we can say, event handlers available, or we can say form elements or controls we have placed on the form, like button, checkbox. So button fires on click, we can say click events. Then after on blur is there, on focus is there. These are the event handlers for a specific object, or object we can say also known as source of an event, okay. Button maybe, as we can say, may generate, we can say, click event, then it may have a blur kind of event, event takes place, then on focus event takes place when the, we can say, button gets focus, like that. Checkbox is also a source of an event through which we can handle the on click, on blur and on focus event. File upload is there, hidden is there, password is there, radio button, then reset button, select control is there, which helps us to handle the on focus, on blur, on change event. Submit button helps us to we can say submit the form through the on submit, we can say, event handler. Text field is there, text control we can say, which helps us to handle the on click, on blur, on focus or on change event. Text area also supports the same kind of event handling. So these are various, we can say, the source of an event or an object of a event, and at the same time there are event handlers in terms of the, we can say, methods which helps us to handle the event. JavaScript form events, if we have to talk, then we can say that button is the main source of event trigger. So whenever a button gets clicked, the form which we have designed and the input we have accepted from the user will be submitted to the specified source, or we can say the backend mechanism which retrieves the data from the submitted form and processes further for forming the response and send it back to the client. The main utility of a button object is to trigger an event, on click event, but a button object has no default action. Thus, there are several types of buttons associated with a form: submit button and reset buttons. As we know that submit will help us to submit the form, while reset button will reset the form fields. These events are fired when some click related activity is registered. Event handlers like on blur, on change, on click, on focus, on reset, on select and on submit are there. They will be triggered with respect to the specified event. Okay, on change will take place whenever a select text or text area field has lost the focus and values are changed. On click will take place when an object on a form gets clicked. Focus will get the field gets input focus. On reset, the form is reset. On select, the text within the text area field is selected. On submit, a form is submitted. So this is what we can say. If such kind of event takes place, the event will be triggered and the corresponding event handler will handle the event. But event handler is what we user or the developer has to specify. Okay, so moving further, before we proceed further for discussing the next object, we need to learn this event handling. Okay, so we have examples to understand various event and event handlers. We have already defined and discussed methods and event sources, or we can say event. Okay, let's look at first. Here we have a form and we have specified a form name with FRM. Then after we have various controls in the form of select. So select, we have a film. Then after we have provided various film names in the option fields. As you can see, we have three forms, three film names, DDL, LOC and Jumanji. These are three options, okay, in a select control. So whenever we will select any one control and change it, at the same time on change event will fire. So we have specified on change property of select control. See here, on change, and on change is equal to, we have specified a show function. So show functions we have already defined it in a script tag, okay, using the JavaScript. So function show will perform the task we have specified in terms of it will retrieve the selected film and display it on the, we can say, on the pop-up window using the alert message box. As you can see, we have defined one variable and then after we are writing document.frm.movie.value. So document is a we can say object, then after we have used .frm, okay, this syntax, okay, document.frm. frm is the name of the form. See here, we have specified, okay. So frm refers the form name, then after .movie is what we can say the ID we have specified of the select control, and then after the value of the particular movie we are selecting. So that is going to be retrieved in the prefer variable and that is displayed using the alert box. So this is what the on change event triggering and handling of that on change event whenever we are changing the options of the list. So let's try to understand it using the example. On change. No, this is not the actual practical one. On change select, this one. As you can see that we have a select control over here having the various film names. Right now we are having three films, that is DDL, LOC and Jumanji. Let's select LOC. So as soon as I select LOC, it pops up with this value LOC using the alert control, okay. So on change event is triggered. If I will again change it to Jumanji, as you can see, then it will pop up with a Jumanji alert box. So this way on change event fires and it is handled. Another event is there, that is on change is there, another one. Here what we have done is in a body tag we have written or we have just created one text field, that is input type is equal to text, its ID is specified, then value we have specified, that is Gujarat, and whenever we are changing the value we have written a on change event, we can say handler in the form of my function. Okay, so as soon as the text changed in the text field, okay, my function is going to called in the form of handler of an event and we are retrieving the value, okay, of the field, that is text field. We have specified using the document objects get element by ID method, okay, that is the method of the document object. So document.get element by ID, to which ID we have specified, that is fname. Fname is the ID of text field, as you can see here. So we are specifying that ID. So we need to identify, we need to get this ID's value in the X variable. Okay, so then after we will just set X dot value is equal to X dot value to uppercase. We are converting the value to uppercase and displaying it. Okay, so let's see how it executes. On change. Okay, the name is on change. Yes. So let's, it is already there, Gujarat. Suppose I will write Ahmedabad. As soon as it leaves, you can say the on change event triggered and it is converted to capital Ahmedabad, as you can see in the text field. Okay, so this way also you can fire the event and event handler will handle it. Okay, so simply by just writing the two uppercase method, it converts the value as soon as the content of the text will gets changed. So on change event is also written like this way. Another example of event is on blur. Okay, so on blur is simply, we can say as soon as the focus is, we can say, lost, then the event will be fired and it is to be handled by the event handler we have specified. So here our event handler we have specified in terms of my functions on the on blur event. On blur, as you can see at last, we have simply a input type checkbox is there. Its name is specified with a C1, ID is specified with app name, and it is by default initially it is kept checked. Then after on blur property we have called we can say handler in the form of function, that is my function, and in the my functions we have written the code that we need to check whether the, we can say, blur event has triggered or not. So simply what we did over here is we have simply written a variable X is equal to document.getElement by ID appname.checked. Okay, we are retrieving the status, okay, in the variable X, and then after we are simply, we can say, display it using the alert message box dialog, we can say. Okay, so let's try to execute this one and understand it on blur. Okay, right now as we see that as per our code it is by default gets checked. So as soon as I will uncheck it, okay, and it will display the message, okay, with the event fired message box. Okay, then after click and it says is false. Okay, whenever I will again check it, okay, it pops up and it says it's true now. Okay, so this way the on blur event is fired and handled. Moving next to further another example of event handling is on submit. Okay, so as you can see that in the, we have a one form container having the name frm1, then on submit we can say property is there in which we have specified the handler confirm input in terms of function. Okay, and then after the actions to be taken while the form is getting submitted, we have specified the Babasaheb Ambedkar open URL. So whenever, as soon as the form gets submitted, this website gets opened. This is what our action property tells. And then after within the form we have one specified, we can say one input type is there in the form of text, its ID is app name and size is 20. And then after one submit button we have created, okay, input type is equal to submitted. So as soon as the form gets submitted, okay, so on submit the confirm input gets invoked, okay, and the input function will do what? So fname is equal to document.frm.fname.value, the form value we are getting retrieving whatever user is entered, and that will be displayed in a dialog box. Let's run it to understand it, that what, how the input value is getting displayed using the pop-up once the form gets submitted. On submit. Okay, so if I will write welcome, and get submit. So it pops up with the text that I have entered in the text field like this. You have entered welcome. Okay, so I will click on the pop up. Okay, and then after you can see the action is fired as we have specified the Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University's URL in the action tag, as you can see here. Okay, so the action has been taken, then the control is redirected to this website. So this way you can also use the on submit event and on submit event handler by specifying a particular mechanism as per your requirement. So these are all, we can say, various events, most importantly generated by the form and the user is dealing with, and the various event handlers for the specific event that is triggered by the controls we have used in a form. Moving next is a image object. So now what is an image object? So in JavaScript, every image in the HTML document represents an image object. With the height property, you can get or set the image height, and with the width property, you can set or get the image width property or image used in the page. The image tag, img tag especially, is used to embed an image in an HTML page. Images are not technically inserted into a web page. Images are linked to web page. Okay, it is simply linked, not we can say actually inserted. The img tag creates a holding space for the referenced image. The img tag has two required attributes. One is source, specifying the location from where the image is to be linked, and second one is alt, specifies an alternate text for the image if the image for some reason can't be displayed on a web page. So these are two main important attributes of the image tag or img tag, src and alt. Okay, and always specify the width and height of an image. If width and height are not specified, the page might flicker while the image loads. In JavaScript, all images in a page are stored in the image array that belongs to the document object. Such image in a web page has assigned an index starting with a 0. So if you want to access the first image object, you can use the syntax like document.images of 0. You can get the number of image objects with the length property. Okay, how many images are there? If you want to know in a document, you can use the length property of an image object, that is document.images.length. Image object is having a various properties in terms of align, alt, border, complete, cross origin, height, h-space, ismap, long, low, src, name, neutral height, neutral width, src, use map, v-space, width, etc. that we can use to manipulate the image object and to place it properly on the web page. Now let's understand this image object with a practical example. So we can have better idea regarding image, how do we edit and how do we handle it. Yes, image. As you can see in this example, we have three images. Okay, image we have inserted first one, that is swiss.jpg, then after swiss1.jpg, then after swiss2.jpg, and we have provided alt attribute and having a value that is dvd.com, dv.com, etc. You can specify any value for this alt attribute. It is aligned centered. Its id is my image 1, my image 2. Its border, height and width properties also set respectively. Then after we have created a one button, and on button on click event is we have specified that, and it invokes handler in the form of my image function, my img. Okay, so what we have did in the my image functions, we are simply getting the length of the image and we are displaying it in the, we can say, our paragraph, as we have defined two paragraphs. See here, one is id vd and second paragraph's id is source. Okay, so we are using this paragraph as to display the length of the image in terms of document.getElement by id, that is we have specified is a vd, that is a id of a one paragraph, first paragraph, and then after we are specifying using it through a inner HTML we can say property, and we are specifying the length of the image in this paragraph. And then after we are also, we can say, specifying the source of the image using the, we can say, items of 0 dot source property, okay, of the document images, and that is also displayed in the source ID that we have specified for the second paragraph, and it is also displayed using the inner HTML property, as you can see. And then after we have used various property of the image, as you can see, and we are displaying it on the document. That is, image is specified, image we have retrieved is first one, that is my image, using the forms document dot get element by id. Documents get element by id method is used to get the my image we have specified, okay. And then after we are retrieving various properties of this my image in terms of height, that is, it is the my image is returned in the x variable, so we have used x variable over here. Once the x is retrieved, we are accessing the various property of this image using the x dot height, width property, x dot natural height, x dot natural width, its alter property, border property, align property, offset top, offset left, etc. Okay, so you can manipulate the property using the image object this way also. So let's run this program to understand the image object. Image object, this one. So now you can see that we have 3 images we have already placed in our code. So 3 images are displayed. Then after we can say we have defined a one click submit button we already defined, as you can see here on click. Okay, so once we click on this button, the handler myimg will be called. So in myimg what we have done, we have specified a length property, that how many images are there. Okay, so it will retrieve through the document dot get element by id. Okay, it will be displayed using this line of code. Okay, whatever we have retrieved in the D as a length. So let's click on this button to get the length of the images contained in the document. So once we click it, it displays 3. So total we have 3 images right now in our document. But if let's test it again, add another image and see what is the value it returns. I am copying pasting these 2 lines more. Okay, so total I am getting the name ID changed to 3. So total image is now 5 we have. Okay, border remaining common. Let's keep it other thing as it is. So I have created 2 another images. So total we have 5 images. So the length property must return 5. Okay, here it must return 5 images in a document. So when I click on this, again I will refresh this page. Okay, so total 5 images it displays. When I click on this button, it returns, see here now 5. Okay, as number of images in a document. So this way the length property returns the images contained, and then after the source of the image is already written, the path it returns in that we can say source paragraph. Then after the properties we have manipulated is displayed, height, width, natural height, natural width, alter, border, okay, alignment, etc. So this way you can manipulate the image object and its various properties. Next is frame object. The frame object is a browser object of JavaScript used for accessing HTML frames. The user can use the frame object through the frame array to access all frames within a window. Using the indexing concept, user can access the frame array. The frame array index always starts with a 0 and not 1. The frame object is actually a child of the window object. These objects are created automatically by the browser and helps users to control the loading and accessing of frames. The properties and methods of the frame objects are similar to that of window object in JavaScript. The frame object does not support close method that is supported by the window object. Using the frameset document creates frame object, and each frame created is thus a property of the window object. A frame should be used within a frameset tag. So we need a frame set tag to create various frames on the, you can say, document. Frame object properties. So frame object supports various properties in terms of source, SRC, name, frame border, margin width, margin height, no resize, scrolling and long descent. Then after, frame set object holds two or more frame elements and each frame element in turns holds a separate document. This object states only how many columns or rows will be in the frame set. The frame set syntax simply looks a tag should be started, within that we need a various frame tags, and at last we need to close the frame set tag. Its attributes may be columns, rows, borders, frame and frame spacing. So we can use, if we want to divide the whole window in the column manners, then in column manners in different frames, then we use columns. If we want to divide the whole window in a row manner frames, then we will use rows attributes or properties. Then after, we can specify the border properties, and then within that we will use various frames in terms of specified columns or rows, and then after we can also specify frame spacing. So the basic concept behind frames is pretty simple. Use the frame set element in place of body element in the HTML document. So if you want to create various frames in your document, you are not required to use body element. Instead, you should use frame set element. Use the frame elements to create frames for the content of the web page. Use this SRC attribute to identify the resource that should be loaded inside each frame. Okay, so whenever we are dividing the whole window into different frames, each frame will contain different content. So the content will be either a source of any text, any image or any video. So we need to provide this source for the specific created frame. Create a different file with the content for each frame. Of course, to create a set of 4 vertical columns, we need to use the frame set element with the columns attribute. Rows of frames can be created by using the rows attributes rather than the column attributes. Columns and rows of frames can both appear on the same web page by nesting one frame set inside of another. To do this, we first create a frame set and then nest a child frame set within a parent element. Let's understand this frame set concept using the example. Okay, as frame set concept is now not used much because it is mostly replaced by the inline frame. But before we proceed further to discuss inline frame, you need to know what is frame and how the frame is created, and various frame set, or we can say the various frames can be loaded in a single window. So to create a frame, we already said that frame set tag is used instead of body tag. So be careful that whenever you are going to create a frame, you need to use frame set instead of body tags. So as we said that frame set is, as you can see in this document, frame set tag is used, and then after, as we want to divide this whole window into various frames in terms of columns, so we used column attributes here, calls, with a frame set tag, and we have specified star, okay, for stars. That means total 4 frames we need in terms of columns, and border is specified is equal to 4. So as we specified 4 stars, that means it indicates we are creating 4 frames. So for that, each star we need to provide 4 frame tags. That is, for first one we have created a frame tag, as you can see, and its source is specified with a specified path. For the second frame we have specified another source, for the third frame we have specified another source, and for the fourth frame we have specified another source. So this way you need to be very careful that how many frames you are creating. Based on that, you have to provide separate frame tags. Okay, so let's run it to understand how simply it looks. It is a frame 1 example, so we will execute first frame 1 example, as we are dividing a whole frame into 4, whole window into 4 frames. So as you can see now, the whole window is divided into 4 frames. Okay, our source is not properly identified, so it's simply not displaying the content we have specified. But if you are providing a proper path, then it will display the content of the specified source in a respective column in terms of frame. So these are known as frames in a column manner. The whole window is divided into 4 frames in a using a column manner. Now the same, if you have to understand in a column row manner, then we can also use in a row manner this way. As you can see here, we have divided the whole window in a frame set using the rows attributes, and we have specified rows attributes. The whole window is now divided into the 4 frames but in a row manner. So let's execute this example as well to understand it better. As you can see, the same example is now in a row manner. So our whole window or document is divided into 4 frames. You can mix up as well. Okay, so how do we mix it? Let's understand again with another example. So now in this you can see that we have a frame set, and in frame set we are creating a columns. Okay, first that means 3 columns we have specified in terms of star. You can also specify the percentage as well. Okay, that's not an issue. Instead of star you can specify 20%, 25%, 50% of the, we can say, particular frame in which you want to accommodate the content. So here our frame set is having a columns. So 3 columns, whole window is divided into 3 columns as we have specified 3 star. And then after, see here we are using a nested frame set again within that frame, main frame parent set, parent tag we can say. So in that we are specifying a rows attribute, and we have specified 2 star again in a row attribute. So what does it mean? That means parent's first column is now divided into 2 rows. Okay, as it is a first one. So first column will be divided into 2 rows, and this 2 rows we have specified 2 frame content in terms of frame tags this way. And for the, then after we are closing the frame set. Inner frame set we are closing, see here. So what does this means? That this is what the content of the first column of the parent frame set. Then after, the second frame is this one and the third frame is this one. So this way we can say divide the document in a mixed manner for different frames, either in a column or row manner. Let's try to understand by executing mixed frame. So now you can see that first column is divided, or first frame is divided into 2 subframes in a row manner, and then after the 2 main frames is there in a column manner. So this is another way to use the frame set concept using the frame. Now the frame concept is suffering from the limitation in terms of usability and accessibility. So usability in terms of it is not very flexible, we can say. Okay, as we need, and as we today we are using a smart devices, and it requires a, we can say, quick response as and when required. So with respect to the frame object, it is not that much flexible and responsive. Okay, so this is what the limitations frame is suffering from. The parallel to frame, we can say the new advanced concept used is, we can say, inline frame, or it is known as iframe. So it represents an HTML inline frame that contains another document, and its property includes align, content document, content window, frame borders, height, long, margin height, margin width, name, no resize, scrolling, source and width. Okay, then after, various methods supported by the iframe, we can say, of frame objects is there. Blur, focus. So blur is simply a method of frame object removes focus from the object. Focus method of the frame object gives focus to the object. So they are, we can say, opposite to each other. Focus is used to get the focus and blur is used to lose the focus. Then after, set interval method is there. Set, it is a frame object method used to call a functions of JavaScript or to evaluate an expression after the time interval specified in an argument has expired. The time interval in argument is always specified in milliseconds. Then after, clear interval, which will clear the interval specified using the set interval method. Then after, set timeout method is there, which requires 2 arguments in terms of expression and milliseconds. Set timeout method of the frame object can be used to execute any functions or accessing methods or property after a specified time interval given to this method as an argument. And to clear this timeout, we will use the clear timeout method. So these are various methods supported by the frame object. So now we have learnt frame and iframe. So what is the difference exactly? So simply we have to define that frames are layout defining elements and iframes are content adding elements. This is the biggest difference that we need to understand by using the frame and iframe. And iframe is more, we can say, responsive compared to the frame object, as well as it is very easily loaded in the document. It takes less, we can say, resources, consumes less resources compared to the frame object. Let's understand iframe with the example. Iframe object is created, yes. Here what we did is, we have simply created a HTML document. Within the body you can see that we have 3 iframes we have specified. One iframe is there having a source attribute, that is a website URL is there. Another iframe is there having another URL. Third iframe is there. So you can have n numbers of iframe tags within your document, or we can say body. You can create n numbers of iframe as per your requirement, and it is an inline frame, so it will be created within the flow of a, we can say, as per the flow of your content of the web page. Click on the button to display the number of iframes. So simply if you want to know how many iframes is contained within your document, you can also use the length property, as we did with the previous, we can say, image object. So what we did here, we have created a click button is there having a on click method defined. Okay, and on click we have an event handler in the form of, we can say, myFrame function is there defined. The myFrame function simply uses the window.length property and it returns the number of iframes contained within this window, and we are displaying in a, we can say, paragraph having a id vd as we specified using the document.getElement by id. We have specified the id vd and then after dot inner HTML property, and within that we are just displaying the d in terms of length returned by this window.length property of the window. So let's run this to understand the iframe example. So we have a frame, okay, so 3 frames is there we have right now. So you can see this is an inline, okay. As you can see, Sardar Patel University we have specified as a source URL. So it displays Sardar Patel University's homepage in 3 inline frames. So when you click on this button, it returns the number of inline frames contained within the document. So it returns a 3, okay, as you can see. If you increase or decrease the inline frames within the document, the corresponding value will get changed, okay. So this way we can also access the or create an inline frame. Apart from that, we can also understand the inline frame in another example. Okay, we can also create inline frame dynamically like this using the functions, okay. So in this example you can see that we have a button. In button we have a on click method, and once the on click triggers, it calls the handler in terms of show function. So we have defined the show functions in a JavaScript like this. So in this show functions, what we did, we are simply creating a one variable named iframe, okay, simply, and it creates here document.createElement, and in create element we have specified iframe, okay. So it will create an iframe, and within that we are specifying, see here, iframe object set attribute. We are setting the attribute, that is src, and we are specifying its value in terms of the website URL of your requirement. Then after we are specifying the height of the iframe and width of the iframe using its attribute set attribute method, okay. And then after we are just writing document.body.text append child. Okay, so this new created element, that is iframe, will be appended in as a child of this body of the document. So this way we can create a iframe in our whole document, so dynamically using the JavaScript. So let's execute this to understand it. Create example, create iframe through the example, frame 1, or create iframe. So this is our what iframe example. So whenever I will click mail, so what it will do, see here, it has added a iframe to our document. So dynamically we are creating this iframe in our document. At the same way we can access it through the another example. Let's have a look at accessing iframe. So this is our another example. Here we are accessing it. Simply we have a button, that is method show is there, as we did with previous example, and here we have a iframe control. As you can see, iframe, its ID is SPU frame, source is defined, width is defined, height is defined. Okay, and when the button is getting clicked, its handler called show is called. Okay, and within the show we have defined a variable x, and we are writing document.getElementById by id SPU frame dot source. So we are retrieving the source property of our inline frame tag, and that is displayed in a, we can say, paragraph, that is we have defined having a id SPU. So get element by id SPU dot inner HTML, which will contain the x. The x contains the source of our inline frame. So this way we can also access the inline frame we have defined in our document. You can access the property of inline frame as we did with other controls. So let's execute this example to understand how do we access the inline frame. So accessing inline frame simply. So let me to click on this button. So it returns the URL, source of our inline frame, in terms of the URL www.spvn.edu. So this way we can access the inline frame. So we are talked regarding frame and inline frame. So comparing this both, we can say the inline frame is more efficient compared to the frame. It consumes less resources compared to the frame object while loading and displaying on a web page. Thank you very much. So in these sessions we talked regarding the controls like form, its various elements, events associated with those elements, and handlers associated with the source of those events. Then after we have talked regarding the image object, and at last we talked regarding the frame object and inline frame objects. Thank you very much.
स्वाध्यायः